For the second time in 24 hours, the IDF has confirmed that it attacked Hezbollah strongholds in Syrian territory against the backdrop of an increased tempo of drone attacks from Iraqi territory. Israel is also preparing for an attack by Iran, and our TBN senior Middle East analyst Mati Shoshani will give us an in-depth look at this issue as it unfolds in the shadows of the United States elections. Meanwhile, the IDF has landed another blow on the Tehran-Beirut supply line, and today I will take you on a secret boots-on-the-ground tour inside a Hezbollah tunnel in southern Lebanon near the Israeli border. In the Gaza Strip, the IDF has brought Hamas to the brink of collapse, but there are still elements who want to continue the battle. But the main story today is the political drama inside Israel, as against the backdrop of the United States elections, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu decided to fire Defense Minister Yoav Gallant and replace him with Foreign Minister Israel Katz. Let's dive into the details. I'm Yair Pinto, and this is your Boots on the Ground report about what is happening in Israel on the 397th day of the war against Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis in Yemen, the Shiite militias in Iraq and Syria. All of them are under the directives of Iran, the head of the axis of evil in the Middle East. Before we begin, I would like to ask you to look for the subscribe button so that you'll never miss another episode of Boots on the Ground. Today's video is sponsored by Artza, and I want to share with you that we are getting your photos on social media with the Artza boxes that you ordered. That's great. Keep sending them to us. We at TBN Israel bring you the truth about Israel, and we invite you to connect with us on our new news website at tbnisrael.com so that you stay tuned to the truth about what is happening in Israel. In recent weeks, the IDF has significantly increased its attacks against Hezbollah's infrastructures in Syria, eliminating senior commanders and breaking up the lines of communications and supply. In the last few days, there has been a significant increase in the tempo of these strikes, and the results are already apparent. In the last operation, fighter jets from the Air Force attacked munition warehouses in the El Qusair area near the Syrian-Lebanon border. These warehouses were used by Hezbollah's weapons unit, which recently expanded its activities from Lebanon to the Syrian territory, perhaps thinking that they'd be safe from the Israeli actions there. If that's what they were thinking, it's only the latest mistake that they've made. The positions Israel targeted in Syria on Tuesday are part of an extensive logistical system whose purpose is to transfer weapons from Syria to Lebanon through the border crossings, and it follows a strike on Hezbollah's intelligence headquarters in the Damascus area on Monday. This headquarters constitutes the organization's central intelligence body. It's responsible for building the intelligence image and directing intelligence activity. The headquarters operates a branch in Syria that includes a collection and evaluation system which operated under the direct supervision of the head of Hezbollah's intelligence headquarters, Hussein Ali El-Zima, who was killed in Beirut about a month ago. In the same attack in Beirut, Muhammad Shaheen, who was in charge of Hezbollah's intelligence headquarters in Syria since 2007, was also terminated. Shaheen, who gained significant experience in his position, developed close working relationships with the Syrian regime and other elements of the so-called resistance axis, making him a very difficult man to replace. His elimination constitutes a significant damage to Hezbollah's intelligence capabilities. In an interview with the El Had news portal, Air Force Major General referred to the recent attacks in Syria aimed at the intelligence center of the Iranian branch in Syria and their possible effect on the Iranian presence in the country. He acknowledged the fact that the previous American and Israeli attacks on various militias failed to reduce the Iranian influence. He He also explained that Hezbollah is establishing headquarters and research centers in Syria in order to preserve the supply lines from Tehran to Beirut through Iraq and Syria. He further noted that Israel has begun to act against them everywhere, especially in the Syrian territories, while mentioning the activity in Dara and Saida Zainab. Saker noted that areas such as the Saida Zainab and Saida Hani are used as Hezbollah infrastructures in Syria. He said that Israel has increased its activity against these areas after starting operations in Dara. These areas constitute a major supply line between Syria and Lebanon, through which Hezbollah receives weapons and economic support. The last part is very important, as wars are not only fought with soldiers, tanks, and warplanes, but also with money. Lebanon's financial bankruptcy gives Israel a tremendous strategic advantage in this war, because the state of Lebanon does not have the resources to find housing solutions for the huge population that fled from southern Lebanon following the entry of the IDF. Moreover, the Hezbollah population that fled from the south was forced to settle mostly in quiet Christian areas in the center and north of the country, and this creates additional friction. This is a source of additional pressure on Hezbollah to agree to a ceasefire on terms that are favorable to Israel sooner rather than later. Speaking of Hezbollah and their growing desperation, today I will take you on a guided tour of one of the tunnels that Hezbollah dug in southern Lebanon, meant to serve as a base for an invasion of the Israeli communities in the Galilee, in the north of Israel. This tunnel and the massive amounts of weapons, ammunition, and equipment that Hezbollah stored in it must have cost several millions of dollars, and in the end, it was all lost to them when the IDF captured it, cleaned it out of anything that could be used, and then demolished it. You won't want to miss this guided tour with me into South Lebanon. The battle continues in the Gaza Strip as the IDF continues to fight the remnants of the Hamas terrorist organization and their allies in the Palestinian Islamic Jihad group. The IDF forces are already deep into the second month of the long raid on Jabalia, the last major stronghold of Hamas in the northern part of the Gaza Strip. The IDF is admitting that a state of siege is being imposed on that area, although many of the civilian residents have already been evacuated. Earlier this week, an operation was launched to target Hamas leaders and field commanders in the city, and the forces of the Givati Brigade managed to eliminate around 50 of these key terrorist personnel. This brings the total number of terrorists estimated to have been taken off the battlefield in this operation to over 1,000 in the last month and a half. There are still around 600 armed terrorists believed to be in the city and nearby villages of Bet Lahia and Bet Hanun, and that means that this battle is far from over. As previously mentioned, about 55,000 of the 70,000 civilian residents of the Jabalia region were already evacuated by the IDF to designated safe zones further south, mainly in and around Gaza City. The IDF is not allowing humanitarian aid to get into the area in an effort to deny Hamas a source of supply and also to encourage the remaining civilian population to move to safe zones where there are plenty of supplies. The IDF statement declares that Jabalia is collapsing and we are defeating the hundreds of remnants of Hamas terrorists there. The enemy is being chased there, and it is mainly trying to take advantage of guerrilla opportunities to attack the IDF. We checked all the claims of burning a school and mass killings of civilians. This did not happen. The IDF also announced that there is a new transit corridor in the northern part of the Gaza Strip. The same corridor runs between the northern towns of the Gaza Strip and Gaza City, and in parallel to the Netzer corridor. At this stage, the IDF does not rule out a permanent post in this corridor. One of the biggest challenges the IDF faces in this battle is the use by Hamas of improvised explosive devices similar to the ones the United States forces in Iraq faced in previous decades. 6 IDF soldiers have already been killed by these devices and several others have been wounded. This battle is far from being over, and we ask you to pray for the Israeli soldiers who must fight and the Palestinian civilians who must endure hardships because of this battle against the terrorists. Another group of people we continue to pray for in the Gaza Strip are the Israeli hostages who were kidnapped on October 7 of 2023 and remain in captivity. Israel has made an open offer of millions of dollars and safe passage out of the Gaza Strip for any Palestinian who brings one of these hostages to the IDF. Meanwhile, the surviving Hamas leadership is continuing to stick to the conditions set by the late Yahya Sinwar, leaving official negotiations at a deadlock. In any case, Israeli military intelligence estimates that it is on the verge of defeating Hamas in Jabalia, declaring that it will not remain and be as it was. The strategy at this point is to continue encouraging civilian residents to move out of the city and at the same time continue the battle against the remaining armed terrorists. These efforts are greatly helped by the terrorists who are captured or surrendered and provide first-hand information about what is going on inside the Hamas camp. Before we continue, I would like to tell you about our sponsor for today's video, Artza. This is an Israeli company that delivers locally produced products from the Holy Land directly to your doorsteps. These Artza boxes are filled with flavors, scents, and craftsmanship made right here in the Holy Land. I know it might be difficult to come here to visit in Israel, especially right now, but this way you can bring Israel to you. Ordering these boxes is a true blessing for the Israeli hard-working people. So please go to www.artzabox.com. Use our exclusive 10% discount on your Artza Box subscription by entering the code TBNIL, and you will get a new box every 3 months. It's like celebrating Christmas 4 times a year. And don't forget to send us your photo and join these products. Guys, here at TBN Israel, we will continue to report about the situation in the Gaza Strip. In a moment, we will move to an in-depth review of the threats from Iran by TBN Israel senior Middle East analyst Mati Shoshani.
Thank you, Yair. Iran continues to issue threats through its media outlets and social networks, stating that it will soon attack Israel in response to the recent Israeli strike on Iranian soil. All of this is part of Iran's psychological warfare, a tactic aimed at sowing fear and panic among Israeli public. However, the assessment among Israeli security officials is that Iran is indeed determined to carry out an attack, but likely only after the US elections, which took place yesterday. The reasoning behind this timing is strategic. Iran is considering that the former US President, Trump, might be re-elected, and an attack on Israel before the elections could be interpreted as a provocation for which Iran might pay a heavy price later on. In any case, Israel remains on high alert. According to security forces, Israel will know the estimated timing of any attack at least a few hours in advance through its intelligence capabilities and cooperation with American intelligence resources. Preparations are being made accordingly. According to sources in the Gulf, the United States has also conveyed messages to Iran via Oman, warning it against attacking Israel before the elections. The U.S. military has also announced that 6 B-52 strategic bombers have arrived in the Middle East from their base in North Dakota. American officials stated that deploying these bombers within the area of CENTCOM, the U.S. Central Command that also covers this part of the Middle East, constitutes a clear and unequivocal message to the Iranians regarding the possibility of another attack using ballistic missiles on Israel. Rhetoric aside, the presence of strategic bombers in the Middle East is of great importance. They are particularly critical if the U.S. decides to assist Israel in striking sensitive and fortified facilities in Iran, especially underground nuclear sites. Despite warnings from both Israel and the U.S., as well as several other Western countries, the Wall Street Journal recently reported that Iran has signaled it is planning a more complex response than its previous instances. Now, according to Iranian officials, this will include stronger warheads and additional weapons. These officials also say that Iran's regular army will also join the response this time, not just the Revolutionary Guard Corps, as was the case in the previous 2 missile attacks on Israel. Now, this is a bit odd. So the report notes that this might be merely threats, but the message remains clear. On a side note, this last threat about Iran's regular military joining an attack on Iran is absurd. The Revolutionary Guard Corps are in complete control of the ballistic missiles and drone arsenals that are the only means Iran has of striking Israel from that distance. Iran's regular air force and navy are equipped with obsolete, poorly maintained aircraft and ships. They would have a difficult time even getting close enough to Israel to fire their weapons at us. But if they try to do so, and our own air force has enough firepower to completely wipe out any such attack before it even began. Be that as it may, there are indications that Iran will try such a maneuver, as an Iranian source was quoted in the Wall Street Journal report as saying that our army has lost people, and so we must respond, referring to the fact that 4 Iranian soldiers were killed in the last Israeli strike. The source also noted that Iran might use Iraqi territory as part of the operation and is likely to attack Israeli military facilities, but in a more aggressive manner than the previous one. Now, that's a direct quote from them. According to other Iranian sources, Iran does not plan to limit its response to missiles and drones, as it did in the previous 2 attacks. These sources also say that the response against Israel will come after the US elections, but before the inauguration of the new president in January. Even though some and perhaps most of this rhetoric is not meant to be taken literally, Israel has no choice but to take it completely seriously and is preparing for the possibility of an Iranian attack. As we've previously reported, although the decision has been made in Tehran, Israel understands that Iran is still deliberating over the scope and timing of the attack, and it's very possible it will occur from multiple fronts at the same time, not just from Iranian territory. Israel's readiness continues to be high, both offensively and defensively. This is alongside the American military, which is already deployed in the region with air defense batteries and additional fighter squadrons to help deal with any scenario involving multiple UAVs. Alongside this preparedness, the US has conveyed a harsh message to Iran. If it attacks again, this time it will not be possible to prevent a large-scale Israeli retaliatory strike. Matthew Miller, spokesperson for the US State Department, said in a briefing last night, "Our message to the Supreme Leader is the same message you've heard from us last week, which is that Iran should not respond any further. And if it chooses to do so, we will support Israel in defending itself." End of that quote. Israel is waiting with growing anticipation for Iran's response following the Israeli strike. Assessments within the defense establishment point to a real possibility that Tehran may choose to act through its Shiite militias in Iraq and Yemen. Now, Israeli security officials, in close cooperation with American intelligence, are closely monitoring developments throughout the region, with a particular emphasis on the activities of the Shiite militias in neighboring countries. The defense establishment believes that Iran is trying to create strategic distance between the arena of its own response and its own territory. All this by activating a loyal militia force. This strategy is perceived in Tehran as a way to reduce the risk of yet another Israeli counterstrike on Iranian soil. However, senior officials in the Israeli defense establishment emphasize that this approach will not prevent a decisive Israeli response. Israel will act forcefully, as it has in the past against Iran, regardless of the source of the attack. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin has ordered a significant reinforcement of American forces in the Middle East, right now in these last couple weeks. This includes the previously mentioned B-52 bombers, refueling aircraft, and additional warships. It's important to note that strategic bombers are not intended for defensive missions, but for offensive ones, which could be interpreted as a clear message to Iran about what may come. Now, all of this comes ahead of the expected departure of the U.S. aircraft carrier Abraham Lincoln and the 3 warships accompanying it in mid-November. For the first time since the beginning of the conflict, there will be a season in which there will be no U.S. aircraft based in this region until the arrival of the USS Harry Truman, which is currently in the North Sea. This is the second time in recent weeks that the U.S. is sending bombers to the area, following the strike in Yemen on October 17th. In addition, recent footage has emerged showing an Israeli Navy missile ship crossing the Suez Canal. For the first time, a launcher for the advanced LORA ballistic missile, produced by Israeli Aerospace Industries, with a range of approximately 500 kilometers, can be seen on board. The presence of a vessel equipped with launchers for these missiles in the Red Sea sends a clear message about Israel's potential strike capability, even deep within Iranian territory. Now, although security officials note that there are no intelligence indications pointing to an immediate Iranian response in the coming days, the assessment is that it may occur in the near future. The IDF and the defense establishment are preparing accordingly, increasing operational readiness and alertness in all possible arenas. As we consider these developments, it's crucial to understand the broader strategic implications. Iran's potential use of proxy forces in Iraq and Yemen indicates an attempt to avoid direct confrontation while still exerting presence and pressure on Israel. However, Israel has made it clear that any attack, regardless of its origin, will be met with the strongest of responses. The deployment of additional U.S. forces in the region underscores the seriousness with which the U.S. views the situation. The presence of strategic bombers and naval assets serves not only as a deterrent, but also as a tangible commitment to support Israel if necessary. Now, it's also worth noting the timing of these events in relation to the U.S. elections. Iran appears to be calculating its actions very carefully, possibly waiting to see the outcome before making any decisive moves. This all suggests that geopolitical considerations are playing a significant role in their strategy. In the midst of all of these tensions, Israel continues to stand firm, prepared to defend itself and its interests. The close cooperation with the United States enhances Israel's deterrence and ensures that any potential aggression will be met with a coordinated and effective response by both the Israeli army and the American armed forces. We'll continue to monitor these developments closely, providing you with the latest updates and analysis. And now, back to Yair Pinto.
Okay, it's time to put on our boots and explore the ground of an actual Hezbollah terror tunnel. In recent days, Israel destroyed a 70-meter-long tunnel in the Lebanese territory after capturing enormous stocks of weapons, ammunition, and military equipment from it. Shortly before this tunnel was demolished, using almost 400 tons of explosives, the IDF spokesman invited me to take a tour inside this tunnel. Here is the documentation of this tour. This is Yair Pinto coming to you from a Hezbollah terror tunnel in southern Lebanon, where only a few weeks ago the IDF conducted a ground maneuver to root out these terror cells from carrying out an October 7th style attack against Israeli communities and against Israel at large. This kind of brings me memories from the Gaza Strip, but the magnitude of these tunnels is just completely different. It's just huge. I was actually on my way home from work when our team got a call from the IDF spokesperson's unit inviting me to join a press tour of a Hezbollah tunnel just 100 meters from Israel's border with Lebanon. Even with a 3-hour drive ahead of me, there was no way I could pass up this opportunity.
From this point on, no lights at all.
So we just entered the Hezbollah tunnel in a Shiite village here on the border with Lebanon. It's very deep. We're going down already 5 meters into the ground. Guys, this is just an amazing maze. We have even electricity here for lights. You have pipes. And this, unlike in the Gaza Strip, This is cement all the way, and it's carved in rock. I want to show you the electric systems that are running through these tunnels. Take a look at this deep tunnel, what's going on here. Okay, this is a tear tunnel that was used and planned to equip the Hezbollah fighters before they infiltrate Israel. Above ground, they could carry out basically this ground maneuver and complete their plans of conquering the Galilee. Obviously, that did not happen as the IDF was prepared. We are between 10 to 40 meters underground, depends on what area you're standing, and we're about to enter the ammunition room that Hezbollah stored its weapons, its food supplies, its logistical supplies. Take a look with me now. To my right here, you see cans, food, everything that they need. This is canned food, kind of like tuna. And here behind me you can see AK-47s, grenades, RPG launchers. Looks like they were a bit more organized than Hamas in Gaza. And you can see that by the size of these tunnels, the level of sophistication, the height. Okay, we're entering another room now. This is like really a huge room.
The main purpose of this room was to house the terrorists that we talked about that would have come here as dressed up as civilians. As you can see, there's mattresses here on the floor. We found tens of these rooms ready to house probably over 100 of these terrorists. There's lights, there's backup to the lights, there's a generator, there's toilets, there's a washing machine, there's a small kitchen, supplies to survive here for months. Billions and millions of dollars, Iranian weapon systems that were invested here for one reason only, to infiltrate into Israel, to kill, rape, and damage Israelis, innocent citizens in settlements. We're very, very determined to do whatever we need to bring our citizens home back to the north, back to where they live, to their beautiful kibbutzim, where we put our money into infrastructure, into education, into supporting our future generations, and not into terrorist tunnels that we're supposed to go into, infiltrate into Israel and conquer the Galilee.
So now we're on our way out of this tear tunnel, and we understand that this is just the beginning. The IDF is determined to find and destroy all of the infrastructure that Hezbollah created in these tunnels, and for 32 years at least, Hezbollah built these tunnels, reinforced them with concrete, with electricity, and invested millions and millions of dollars into its tear tunnels with the sole purpose of invading Israel instead of investing it in the people of South Lebanon. This is the truth. This is the truth of what we're fighting against. Terrorists that will invest everything that they have in the destruction of Israel. I want to take this moment and actually pray. I want to pray for the IDF soldiers that are fighting now in this war, fighting here. Some of them are 19 years old, 18, some of them are 40 years old. And they are here to defend our country. So let's pray for them, for their safety and for their safe return home to their loved ones. Okay, we're now starting the way back to Israel. I'm gonna start my journey back home. Guys, thank you for watching, and keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem. We will conclude with the late breaking news story from Tuesday evening here in Israel. and that's the decision by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to fire his defense minister Yoav Gallant for the second time, and this time it looks like the decision will not be reversed as it was in March of 2023. Netanyahu's brief explanation of why he fired Gallant this time is that there has been a breakdown in trust between the two of them, but this is a very simple explanation of a very complex issue. Gallant, a former IDF general, is highly qualified to be the defense minister, but he has taken several positions in the past year that are directly opposed to the positions of other members of Netanyahu's governing coalition in the Knesset. This has made keeping the coalition together a very difficult task for Prime Minister Netanyahu, and it has been made even more difficult by the large grassroots support that Gallant has for some of his positions, especially in regards to the best way to handle the negotiations with Hamas over the return of the remaining Israeli hostages from Gaza. Gallant has also opposed Netanyahu and some of the other members of the coalition on the issue of ultra-Orthodox enlistment into the IDF and the need for a commission of inquiry into the events of October 7. As he was leaving the IDF headquarters in Tel Aviv as defense minister for the last time on Tuesday evening, Gallant said, "There is and will be no atonement for not releasing the Israeli hostages. My position on the recruitment issue remains firm as it is a crucial issue for our national security. I trust that the IDF and its soldiers will continue to protect Israel's security even when I am not on duty." Israel Katz, a staunch ally of Netanyahu, who has been serving as Israel's foreign minister, will now take up the position of defense minister. Guys, please continue to pray for the leaders of Israel and the leaders of all our allies around the world to make wise and godly decisions. Please pray for the soldiers of the IDF that still fight in Lebanon, in Gaza, in the sky, in the air, and in the sea to defend us. Please pray for the quick return of the Israeli hostages in Gaza. And guys, keep praying for the peace of Israel, and most importantly, don't forget to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And together, we will win this war because God is on our side.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.